Imagine walking through the densest jungle on Earth. Every step is a struggle. Vines curl around your boots. The canopy above is so thick, sunlight barely touches the ground. You push through the undergrowth with a machete, sweating, searching, and you find nothing. You walk for miles, still nothing. And then you get on a plane. A laser fires downward, millions of pulses per second, piercing through millions of trees, stripping away the forest with light. And on a screen, in a room far away from that jungle, something impossible appears. Streets, plazas, roads, entire cities, right there, beneath your feet, hidden in plain sight for 2,500 years. This is not a movie. This is not a legend. This happened in January 2024, and it changed everything we thought we knew about human civilization. Welcome to the ancient lost vault. For centuries, the Amazon rainforest was considered one of the most hostile places on Earth. A beautiful wilderness, yes, but uninhabitable for large organized societies. Scientists, historians, and explorers long believed that ancient peoples of the Amazon were small, nomadic tribes, scattered, simple, surviving day to day in the wild. But there was a problem with that story. A Spanish friar named Gaspar de Carvajal, who traveled the Amazon in 1541 alongside the conquistador Francisco de Orellana, wrote something that nobody took seriously for hundreds of years. He described enormous settlements along the riverbanks, cities, organized communities, thriving populations, people who had clearly built something vast and extraordinary. For centuries, historians dismissed his accounts as exaggeration, fantasy, the ramblings of a man lost in the jungle. They were wrong, because deep in Ecuador's Upano Valley, in the eastern foothills of the Andes Mountains, buried beneath millions of trees and 5 centuries of silence, an entire civilization had been waiting to be found. His name is Stéphen Rostain, an archaeologist and director of research at the French National Center for Scientific Research, the CNRS. For nearly 30 years, Rostain had been working in the Upano Valley. He knew something was there. He had spent decades walking those lands, digging, excavating. He had found earthen mounds, pottery, the remnants of something ancient and significant. But the forest always stopped him. The trees were too many, the canopy too thick. He could feel the civilization beneath his feet, but he could not see it. Then, in 2015, everything changed. The Ecuadorian government funded a LiDAR survey of the valley. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, is a technology that fires laser pulses from aircraft toward the Earth. Those pulses pass through the gaps in the forest canopy, strike the ground, and bounce back. The data collected creates a precise, 3-dimensional map of the terrain below, as if the forest simply does not exist. When Rostain received the results, he later said the only word that came out of his mouth was, "Wow." What the lasers revealed was beyond anything anyone had expected. Not one city, not 2, but a complex network of at least 15 distinct ancient settlements, 5 large urban centers and 10 smaller ones, spread across 300 square kilometers of the Upano Valley. The entire site covered approximately 230 square miles of land. Rostain described it simply. It was really a lost valley of cities. It's incredible. Let that sink in for a moment.
You know, for centuries, we believed the Amazon rainforest was one of the most hostile places on Earth. I mean, sure, it's a beautiful wilderness, but we thought it was totally uninhabitable for any kind of large, organized society. Well, we were wrong. Today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of how a laser revealed a massive, 2,500-year-old civilization that was hiding in plain sight this whole time.
Okay, so first I want you to picture the densest jungle you can possibly imagine, the kind where the canopy is so thick sunlight barely even touches the ground. This is the world that for centuries hid one of humanity's biggest secrets. And for decades, archaeologists were on the ground here, walking these lands, digging, searching. They'd find little hints, a piece of pottery here, an earthen mound there, but the sheer scale of the forest made it impossible to see the big picture. They were literally walking right on top of ancient cities and had no idea. And then a piece of technology comes along that changes everything. a plane flies over the jungle, firing millions of laser pulses every second, and in an instant, it digitally strips away all the trees to reveal exactly what was lying beneath. This really gets to the core of this huge, long-held myth, the whole idea of the Amazon as just an empty, uninhabitable wilderness. And for generations, this wasn't just some popular idea, it was the accepted scientific and historical fact. I mean, this narrative was so ingrained. The official story that everyone was taught was that ancient Amazonian peoples were just these small, scattered groups trying to survive day to day. And that one assumption shaped our entire understanding of the continent's history. But here's a really fascinating twist in the story. All the way back in 1541, a Spanish friar named Gaspar de Carvajal wrote about seeing enormous cities along the Amazon. But for almost 500 years, his account was just dismissed as pure fantasy. Historians literally called him a liar. And it turns out, he was telling the truth the entire time. So let's fast forward to the modern day, and to this one archaeologist whose 30-year search was about to collide head-on with this brand-new, revolutionary technology. His name is Stéphen Rostain, and for nearly 3 decades, he worked in Ecuador's Upano Valley. He just knew something significant was buried there. He said he could literally feel the civilization beneath his feet, but the jungle always won. He just couldn't see it. And this is the game changer, LiDAR. It's basically a technology that shoots laser pulses down from a plane. These little pulses find the gaps in the leaves, they hit the actual ground, and then they bounce back. What you get is a perfect 3D map of the surface, almost as if the forest just wasn't there. So when Stéphen Rostain finally got to see the LiDAR data from the valley he'd spent his entire life exploring, only one word came out of his mouth: wow. In that single moment, 30 years of his belief were confirmed in the most spectacular way you can imagine. And what those lasers revealed, it was beyond anything he, or really anyone, had ever imagined. He started calling it a lost valley of cities, and honestly, the sheer scale of what they found is just breathtaking. Get this, more than 6,000 rectangular earthen platforms. And these weren't just random bumps in the ground. No, these were the actual foundations of houses, temples, and huge ceremonial structures. And these structures weren't just in one place. They formed a whole network of at least 15 distinct settlements spread across an area of 300 square kilometers, a massive, interconnected urban landscape. But maybe the most staggering thing of all is the age. The main construction here started around 500 BCE, so this civilization was thriving 2,500 years ago, around the same time as the Roman Republic. It's just incredible. To really put this into perspective for you, the core area of just one of the largest settlements they found, a place called Kilamope, is comparable in size to the entire Giza Plateau in Egypt, where the Great Pyramids are. We are talking about a wonder of the ancient world that was hidden in the Amazon. And you have to understand, this was not an accident. This was a masterclass in urban planning. They built wide, straight roads connecting the cities. The streets were laid out at deliberate right angles. All of this shows advanced engineering and a really highly organized, unified society. But they didn't just build cities out of earth and roads. They created something truly unique that researchers are now calling garden urbanism.
So what does that even mean? Well, it meant that their urban centers were completely interwoven with nature. They built these incredible hillside terraces for growing crops. They had sophisticated drainage canals, and they kept these beautiful green spaces integrated right between their settlements. They didn't conquer the forest. They built their civilization with it.
So why is this more than just another amazing discovery? It's because this one finding fundamentally rewrites the entire story of human civilization, especially when we talk about the Americas.
Just think about this. The Upano civilization thrived for over 1,000 years. To give you some perspective, the Western Roman Empire lasted for about 500 years. This society wasn't just complex, it was incredibly durable and sustainable. So it completely flips the script. The old story of the Amazon was all about a wilderness that was inhabited by primitive tribes. The new reality this discovery forces us to accept is that it was a cradle of civilization, home to sophisticated urban societies. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The co-author of the study, a guy named Antoine Dorison, he put it perfectly. He said, "It changes the way we see Amazonian cultures. This shows ancient people lived in complicated urban societies. This directly shatters a deeply rooted, centuries-old prejudice." And here's the really mind-blowing part. This is probably just the beginning. Similar discoveries using LiDAR are now happening all across the Amazon basin. We are just now starting to realize there is this vast, hidden history right underneath the canopy.
So, the most important takeaway from all of this is pretty simple. The Amazon was never an empty wilderness. It was a home. It was a civilization. And that leaves us all with a pretty profound question. What else is still down there, just waiting to be found?
There is something profound about standing at the edge of a jungle and knowing, truly knowing, that beneath that wall of green, beneath millions of trees and centuries of silence, entire worlds existed. Worlds that grew food, that built roads, that brewed beer and decorated pottery and raised children in plaza courtyards, that looked up at the same stars we see tonight and wondered about the same things we wonder about. They are gone now, but they were real. Their cities were real. Their knowledge was real. And thanks to a beam of laser light fired from a plane above the forest, they are real again. This is what the vault holds. Not dust, not ruins, but the living memory of people who understood this earth in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. The jungle kept their secret for 2,500 years. We are just now learning to listen. If this story moved you, if it made you feel the weight of what has been lost and the wonder of what is still being found, subscribe to Ancient Lost Vault, because this is only the beginning. The vault is open, and there is so much more inside. Lost to history, found by us.